So today we need to pick out an amp to test. Wonder what we should choose. Let's take a gander here at some of the amps that we have to choose from. I tell you, I see one right here that I got repaired not long ago by my buddy Sean. Precision Power ProMOS 50. What do you say we try that one? I say yes. Here we have the amp. You can see I wrap them up to protect them. It's very important. We don't want them to get messed up. But we also took some time and we printed off the manual. What is an old school amp without the old school manual? In this case, full color front. Got all the information here too. This is all the specs that we need for the amplifier. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, let's get this unwrapped and we'll take a closer look at the amplifier, see what it's all about. Precision Power Professional MOS 50, 50 watts per channel times 2. We're going to take a closer look at the specs here in a little bit. First off, let's get the amp cleaned up as much as possible. Cleaned in between the fins. You'll notice here that the amp is a little bit beat up. It was used. I can't remember exactly where I got this from, but obviously it's not in what you would consider excellent or mint condition. It's a used amp, and it's from like 1994, so you don't expect perfection unless somebody's really taking good care of it. Now these Mr. Clean Magic erasers are a trick with some old school amps that have this white painted finish, because they can really clean them up without damaging the silk screening. So I'm going to clean the amp a little bit. You can see, got it looking a lot better. Looks really good here, especially from about 5 feet away. You can't really tell. This does use the artwork of Carolyn Hall Young, and a great artist that she was, and God rest her soul. Now, as far as this availability, in 1990, this was called the MOS 2050, and then 91 through 95, it was called the ProMOS 50. So over the years, it changed, models, and the price actually changed too, because when it was first introduced, it was $880 in 1990. Then it dropped to $649 and stayed that way through 1995. In the October 1990 Carodian Electronics, there were 8 100-watt amplifiers that kind of had a shootout, and the ProMOS 2050, which again was the original name of the MOS 50, was in that test, actually got first place. They really liked the way it doubled the power all the way down to 1 ohm, and they also liked the way it went down to 7.5 volts. Now, this amp is rated 50 watts per channel at 4 ohms, 100 watts per channel at 2 ohms, and 200 watts per channel at 1 ohm, or 400 watts bridged at 2 ohms. Now, the SQ heads really like these power bandwidth, total harmonic distortion, signal noise ratio is very high, damping factor is very high. All these specs look really good. As far as the amp goes itself, there's not a whole lot going on here. You have a power LED, left and right RCAs, gain control, and you have this plug for phantom power, which powers precision power devices such as crossovers and EQs and things like that. Uses plus or minus 15 volts. On the opposite side, we just have the sticker that tells us the model and the serial number, 8-gauge power and ground wires. Then it has this little plug here, which is the Molex connection for the speakers. Hateful connector. These are super hard to find. I'm not sure they even make these anymore, so I don't know that anybody's 3D printed them yet, but if you can find one, good. If not, a lot of people are direct wiring these into the amp, and you just might have to do that. But I have a plug for mine, and I use this little terminal strip. I'll leave a link in the video description if you want to pick up one of these terminal strips. They work really well. That way you don't have to keep splicing your wires and completely ruin them. But on the bottom of the amp, it does tell you what the wire colors are for and also how to bridge the amp. Now, from reading the test before of this amplifier that was done back in 1990, I had a good idea of what to expect. PPI amps back in the day were not very underrated. In fact, they were rated like right at what they actually did. So let's try the 4 ohm test rated 50 watts by 2. We got 54 watts by 2. Now, the other good thing about this amp I didn't really talk about much is the regulated power supply which means you can use this at really low voltages like 12, 11, even 10.5 volts, and you're still going to get the same amount of power that you're seeing here. That's unusual. You don't see that today, but back in the old school days, that was something that some of the amps did use in their power supply section, like the Autotex, Precision Powers. There were several other brands that did that as well. Now for 2 ohms, it's rated 100 watts by 2. And again, we expect to get right at that power, and we do. 104 and 100 at 14.2. That was a certified test of 1% THD. Uncertified test takes us up to the clipping point, and it's going to be right about the same. 106 and 102, there's a little bit of channel disparity, but you have to remember, 4 watts difference between the channels here at full volume is not going to make a difference. You'd never know it. Dynamically, these amps don't have a lot of capacitance in them, so they don't have very much dynamic power, but still do about the same. Now 1 ohm, this is where it's rated 200 watts by 2, and you're going to see here we're going to get a little shy of that. This is a 40 hertz test. 181 and 170, that was a little disappointing, but it wasn't completely unexpected. Uncertified, again, we did not quite make the 200 watts per channel that it's rated. 189, 178, that's pretty close. I wish it would have got it there, but is what it is. Let's see if we can get to it dynamically. Again, this is a 40 hertz track, and again, this amp doesn't have a whole lot of dynamic power, so we didn't get there. 186 and 177. Now just to test it out also, we ran a 1 kilohertz tone just to see if we could get that 200 by 2. And again, it's so close, but not quite there. Next up, we bridged the amplifier to try the 4 ohm and the 2 ohm mono loads. It's rated 200 watts at 4 ohms. And yes, we're going to get right at that number, 209 at 14.34. So let's reset the dyno, try the uncertified test. I know a lot of these are pretty close. Should get a little bit more power. 215 watts, 14.22. And dynamic will be the last test here at 4 ohms. Here we go. So close to the other test. Not really a whole lot of excitement here, but 211 watts at 14.28. Now 2 ohms bridge mono rated at 400 watts is the same as 1 ohm stereo. So we know we got a little shy at 1 ohm stereo, so I bet we're going to get a little shy here. And we did, 376 at 14.14. So 24 watts or so shy of the 400 watt rating. And it's even rated at 12 volts, but again, it doesn't really matter with this amp. Uncertified, we got 391, and that's statistically close enough in my book to be 400 watts. Dynamic at 40 hertz, can we get that 400 watts? Not quite, my friends. 381, 14.07. But let's switch it over to the 1 kilohertz track. Try that 2 ohm burst again and see. And here you go. We're going to bust that 400, are we? Let's go close. Oh, yes. 402, 14.14. 2 ohms bridge, 1 kilohertz. Here's a test sheet for all the different tests that we ran. And yeah, you can pause this if you want to see it. But overall, the amp did well. It's just the lowest ohm load. It did not quite do it. Now let's find out how it sounds with the quad box. All right, let's try the PPI 400 watt amp here on the quad box with the woofer test. crazy. Oh yeah, she's heating up. Heat is on, but she is bumping. Now, it may be difficult to tell from the video, but yeah, I mean, 453 watts at 1.7 ohms, 514 at 1.6 according to the AMM1. This amp really sounded good with the quad box. I mean, just incredible, honestly. Sounded like at least 1,000 watt amp to me. So I don't know what the special sauce precision power used for these amps. They did get hot. I mean, it is a class AB amp. It's a high current amp. You can see the outside of it. It's around 96 degrees Fahrenheit or so. I put my hand there just so you could see the difference in the temp of my hand versus the amplifier. And it never overheated, never shut off, but wow, I was just really blown away with how it sounded. So these amps, the bottom panel, take the bottom panel off. The bottom panel actually clamps down the transistors, the MOSFET power supply, and the BJTs for the outputs. But here you can see I tried to take it off pretty quick after I did the test just to see how hot it got. Of course, the transformer is going to be the hottest portion here, about 117 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything else, not too bad. Looks standard, class AB. That cap there, 2200 microfarad, 50 volt. It's a little warm, but overall, not bad at all. You could add some active cooling to this if you needed to. But man, for this thing to be, 30 years old, it performed really well. And again, I was blown away by the numbers versus how it sounded to my ears. Inside the amp, if anybody's ever seen a precision power amp from the early 90s, you will fully understand what you're seeing here because they all look so much alike. These use, well, for this one, it has the Rev K board, and they typically use just a smaller power supply here. They use BJTs for the outputs, the bipolar junction transistors. And then for the power supply, they do use the MOSFETs. That's what the ProMOS stands for. These are N-channel MOSFETs. But this amp is just beautiful on the outside. And I can't stress it enough. The numbers that you're seeing here on the dyno just really don't give this amp justice. I wish there was some other way that it could be portrayed how good this amp sounds. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this quick video. Till next time, I'm out.
Thing sounds pretty good. You know how them sound waves go?
Alright guys, there we have the test of the PPI ProMOS 50. Got it all wrapped back up. I'm going to put it back away for now. Maybe we'll do some more tests with it later. Maybe we'll test it with the quad box and the Sequoia, see how much SPL it does. I don't know. I like this amp, so I'm going to keep it. So thanks for watching. See you next time.